Aloha and welcome to Salt of the Earth. I'm Veruschka Normandeau. I am a healing arts coach here on the Big Island of Hawaii. And today I actually am here in person with a beautiful, beautiful being that I admire so much. And I met her back on my first voyage here to the Big Island in 2008, and she really made a magical impression on me. Rose Elaine Messenger. Back in 2008, she had this big spiral book, handbook about the new earth. And back then, nobody was talking about the new earth. And it was very complex and really beyond things that I was aware of. And fast forward 2017, I reconnect with Rose Elaine, and lo and behold, she actually has published her book, The Handbook for a New Humanity. And there is just so much good juju in here and good information. And you're much a pioneer, like myself, but yet you are definitely an elder to me, and I'm so grateful you want to do this interview with me. So wanted to chat a little bit about your book today and what brought you on this journey and inspired the Handbook for a New Humanity. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and what you do or what you call yourself, and how you were led to write about this.
Okay, thank you for having me here today. Okay. Well, I started to take notes for this book maybe 20 years ago, as I had come into a spiritual awakening. And it was, I didn't really have any information on what was going on with me. And I knew, though, that I was a light worker. And that means a light worker, we create pathways in the inner light so that the soul can see a way ahead of them. And we created these pathways for other people to be able to follow, because it's so dark and you can't find your way, and that's how I felt. So I started writing down my experiences in hopes that it would help others. I didn't want other people to go through their spiritual awakening kind of blindfolded like I did. Some of the symptoms of awakening are you begin to feel very restless about your life. You wonder what your purpose is. What's going on anyway? Why am I here? Do I live in the right place? Maybe I need to move. Maybe I need to change jobs. There's sort of just an unrest that goes on. And it's very helpful to have a path or a master of some kind that you follow. But I must say, in this new age of Aquarius, you are your own guru. Which is the way it's meant to be, that we check into our own selves, our own hearts, to find the way that I'm supposed to go. Because each one of us is very individual and unique. There's nobody else in the whole universe like you or me. So we really have to find our own individual path. But for me, I'd been raised by a family of atheists. And if you mention God or anything about it, they just would tell you, never talk about that again. But as a little child, about 6 years old, I started to walk to a church that was near our house. And I found out about Jesus. And I was so happy. And then after that, the neighbors were going to churches, so I went with them. And so I got an idea of a lot of different churches and how they were. I got baptized many times because they would say, "Have you been baptized?" And I say, "Oh, I think so." And then they say, "Oh, no, that's not good enough. You have to come. We got to do it, you know." So they would baptize me. And so,
did your parents know you were doing this?
yeah, they knew. They were okay with it. I won a Bible by reciting all the books of the Bible. I memorized them. And so I had this little white Bible, and my parents let me keep it and read it, but I wasn't allowed to ever talk about it. So I was at a crossroads in my life, living in San Diego, when I felt that restlessness and discontent, and I applied to work on cruise ships. I thought, well, that might be fun. Before I knew it, I was being offered a job on Maui, and I was a hairdresser. And so I went over there, and it was like, it felt to me like I got skyrocketed over to Maui all of a sudden. Within 2 weeks, I was there. And then I began a spiritual journey on Maui. I had to learn a lot of things about myself. I'd like to talk about the little story about Pinocchio. I put that in my book. You know, Pinocchio was a wooden boy, and his father, Geppetto, wished sometimes he could be a real boy. Well, Pinocchio talked his father into letting him go on a journey, and he allowed it only if Jiminy Cricket would go along. And Jiminy Cricket would sit on Pinocchio's shoulder, and he was his conscience. Because as a wooden boy, he didn't know right from wrong. So on his journey, he got involved with some kids that were doing all the wrong things. They were drinking and smoking and stealing and getting in fights. And so Pinocchio got introduced to another side of life that he didn't know about. And he learned to lie. Now that's the key. Because as human beings, we all have actually 2 different minds. And the one mind, the human mind, is always telling us lies. And our correct mind, our spiritual mind, tells the truth. So Pinocchio began to tell lies. And every time he told a lie, his wooden nose grew a little bit more. And Jiminy Cricket would tell him, "Don't do that, Pinocchio. Don't tell those lies. Tell the truth." But Pinocchio didn't listen. So he kept telling more lies and covering up for what he did. And like all of us do, you know, we make mistakes, and then we try to deny that and pretend we didn't, and we don't want to admit the truth, and you know, that's all human. And so Pinocchio kept telling lies, and his nose actually grew out to be a tree with leaves on it and everything. And when he saw that, he knew he was in trouble. Well, it's very much like that with us as humans. Our human mind or ego mind is programmed in fear. And it's always chirping away at us of what we should be afraid of. And it could be anything, you know, like, I'm going to lose all my money, or I'm going to be sick, or he doesn't love me, or she doesn't love me, or nobody loves me, or you're no good, You're not good enough. That's one everybody has. You're not good enough. It isn't enough, no matter how much you do. Things like that. They're the lies that the human ego mind tells us. And when we're unconscious, before we've had an awakening, we believe that stuff. I went around most of my life with very low self-esteem. I didn't think I was worth anything. I didn't think I was pretty enough. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I could do anything right. I had to be a perfectionist so that I'd make sure I did it right. I didn't think anybody wanted to hire me. You know, for sure, I wasn't going to be loved. And there wasn't going to be a man that would love me. If he found out who I really was, he wouldn't love me. So I had to kind of hide myself. I didn't want him to find out, you know. And I don't know if you relate to this or not, but I think a lot of people will. And I list in my book a lot of these, what I call patterns in programming that we all get. And they're lies, but we get it from churches, schools, family, the government. You know, it's programming that we get when we're little and as we grow up. So I put some of that in here so that you could easily recognize it when it comes up. So
when did you know that you are a light worker? When you were having all of those self-doubts and personal feelings, at what point did you know that you're a light worker?
I think it's someplace in my 30s. Actually, what happened was I had what they call a spontaneous spiritual awakening. Now, that may or may not happen to you, but I'll give you the heads up if it does. All of a sudden, I was opened up to the spiritual world. I started to see auras around people, their energy around them. I started to read minds, which is very disconcerting. I don't want to do that. I found that I was a healer. I could put my hands on people and do certain things and they would get healed. I felt a lot of energy in my body. It was kind of too much really to handle. And so that's a spontaneous awakening. It can be caused by your kundalini energy, which goes up the back of the spine. When it starts to rise, you'll start waking up. Well, mine must have rose really quick because it was all of a sudden I was in this spiritual world. So it caused problems at the time. My husband thought I had gone crazy. I think there are people that have been put in institutions that have had these kind of experiences. They're not crazy, they're just tuning into another reality. So that's what happened to me. But what I'm saying about Pinocchio is that he became filled with lies. And we become filled with lies. They go down into our cells. We in our very cell, I can feel that I'm not good enough, you know, or I'm not lovable. It's down deep into the cell. So what Pinocchio had to do was quit doing it. He had to listen to Jiminy Cricket and start telling himself the truth. The truth is, I am. When we say I am, whatever we say after that is going to be the truth. So watch out. You don't want to say things that you don't want to be the truth. So I am happy. I am a beautiful spiritual being. I am good. I am humble. I am virtuous. I am creative. I am, whatever all these wonderful things, these attributes of God are, what we call character, good character. That's who we really are. We're not these ineffectual, stupid human beings that go around destroying everything. That's not who we really are. Who we really are is these loving, giving, wholesome, healthy people that want to take care of the earth and each other. And that's what I'm calling the new humanity. It's people who are realizing that they don't want to go the route that other people have told them they should go. They want to find a new way to do things that'll be happier, will take less effort, and will have great results.
So do you have to believe in anything in order for this book to make sense?
No. What I say right in the beginning of the book is that every person has to find their own version of what they call God or spirit or the creator or the source. Whatever that energy is that gives us life, and when it leaves, we don't have life anymore. Whatever you want to call it is fine. Just realize, though, that spirit energy is within you. It's in your soul. And all paths, no matter which you take, unless it's not a true path, all true paths converge like this at the end, and they lead to the same Godhead. So it doesn't matter if you want to call it Buddha, Christian, Hindu, Zoroastrian, whatever, whatever you feel inside is right for you, then it is right. So I'm saying you don't have to have any particular kind of religion. You don't have to have a religion at all. It's just a sense that I am a spirit inhabiting a human body. And so, in order to get rid of the lies that we bought into, we need to start clearing that stuff out of ourselves. So I devote a lot of time in this book of telling you how do you clear the false programming that you've been given.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a few questions around that because, I feel like I always attract the right information at the right time. And there were like 2 points in here that really were big ahas for me that are pretty big topics that I felt like you really nailed it and gave me some assurance, and security. And one of them actually is the body stuff, where I feel like I used to do cleanses, 10, 15 years ago, every year, colonics and 10-day cleanses and juice fasting and all of that. And these last few years, I have just been putting on tons of weight, not eating as much as I used to, not being obsessed with food. And yet I feel like I am always my body is constantly cleansing. Where I think, oh, I'm going to go do a cleanse, but yet I feel like I'm cleansing all of the time. And you spoke to that in here. Can you share a little bit about that? How effortless it's been?
Right.
And why it's happening?
What many people don't realize that we have what we call a body elemental. It's like, you know how there's fairies and elves and those kind of beings in nature. Our body elemental is like one of those nature beings that stays with this body. And if we ask it, what's the best thing for me to eat today? Or if we ask it, I feel like I need to clean my body out. What should I do? It will naturally guide you in the right way. You know, you don't necessarily have to force yourself to do anything because the body knows what to do. And it's all a matter of learning to trust the body. I know we've been conditioned that if anything goes wrong in the body or we think it's wrong, we run to the doctor. And then they come up with whatever they come up with. I found that I seldom go to the doctor, and if I do, I'm disappointed because they really don't know. They don't know what it is. And my body puts itself on cleanses. It directs me to the right kind of food. And, you know, some people think that to be on a spiritual path, you have to eat a certain diet. And that's okay. If they want to do that, that's fine. But I found that's too restrictive for me. And it works better for me to just say, what is appealing to me today? Because I don't really eat much. And I have gained weight in spite of that. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of us women are gaining weight for unexplained reasons. I think it's because women are more in tune with Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is suffering. You know, she's dying. The people have killed her. But it's really not the people's fault. It's the fault of a few people on this planet that have taken control. They've always been in control. And they don't care what happens to the people. They want to keep us in constant war. They're the billionaires and trillionaires, and they have their own little club, and some call it the Illuminati, and other names, the Cabal, but they have perpetuated war, famine, disease. You know, there's no need whatsoever on this planet for anybody to go without food, without good water, without clean air. We have all the resources we need. It's just a matter of learning how to share things with each other. Straightening out the governments so that governments cooperate with one another. And we help other countries that don't have enough food or whatever it is. But I have to go back to Pinocchio and the lies, because as we learn to tell the truth, and it may feel uncomfortable, you know, because my human mind's going to tell me that I'm not worth it, I don't deserve it. You know, I got a brand new car finally. I always drove these old Toyotas that really got me around, you know, but they weren't much to look at. I finally got this spiffy little car, and I was so happy about it. And what do? I go right out and get in an accident. And it's my fault. Fortunately, no one was hurt. But I had to think about that later. You know, why did I cause that accident? And then I realized because I wasn't allowing myself to have this beautiful new car. I had to screw it up. I had to ruin it somehow. And I have another story like that. I have this ring. I love this ring because it's an infinity symbol, and it reminds me of my path, which is like a figure-8 flow. It's an infinity path. Well, I got this ring. I was so thrilled. I went down to the beach, and I wanted to put suntan lotion on. I didn't want to get it on the diamond, so I took the ring off, set it in the cup in my chair, and when I left the beach, it had dropped on the ground. I went back to find it, couldn't find it. Somebody got it, and I decided that was good. I'm glad that it went to somebody and it blessed their life. But I had to go out and get another one, and I thought, what was that all about? And I realized it's, again, me not feeling like I'm worthy. I don't deserve these beautiful and good things. So, you can say, I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to have the kind of house I want. I'm going to take trips. You can say all that, but if you've got blockages inside yourself like I have had, something's going to keep you from getting what you really want. So I realized I had to clear those patterns of non-deservability and that I'm not worthy. And we're all worthy of God's goodness and treasures, the kingdom of heaven. We're all worthy of that. We're God's children. Can you imagine there's this great creator out there, the source of all things manifest. And we humans are his, her, its special children. And we were designed in the image and likeness of that creator. We even have a diamond in our heart. Because he doesn't make junk. He puts a diamond in our heart and a rainbow going right up our body like this. And I painted a picture of that and I put it in the book.
Are we showing? So you mentioned something about if we have these blockages, that we have to release them. Can you speak about, for instance, I have been dealing with anger the last 3 years like nobody's business. Something that I've always judged, something that I've been afraid of in people and others. And now, the slightest thing, like a gecko pooping on something important, can drive me just to feeling violent.
Right.
So is there any advice you can give on removing blockages such as negative emotions that feel like they own us or overtake us?
Well, yes. When I had a considerable amount of rage inside of me from the way I was raised, I got into what they call bioenergetic therapy. And it's helped me more than anything. What it is that you go into the feeling. You don't try to suppress it. Because every time you suppress the anger or the fear, you push it down, it's going to go down into your subconscious. we need it to come out of the subconscious, come up to light, and transmute it into more love for ourselves. And the way we do that is we use the violet light or the violet energy of unconditional love for ourselves and others. This violet energy I speak about in my book, and I tell you how to use it. And it actually changes a dark energy into a light energy. So it will change anger or fear into unconditional love, little by little by little. But I have to say it worked, because I don't have that anger and rage anymore that I used to have. I don't have the fear. I mean, I had panic attacks. I was so frightened of everything. I had terrible panic attacks. And then I used to drink alcohol to calm me down and help me get through it, you know. And I don't have that anger and fear like I used to. And I know what you mean. When it's there, and any little thing could set it off, and you're just way angry, out of proportion to whatever happened. But I recommend screaming into your pillow, beating on your bed. Take a tennis racket and beat on the bed, or a bat or something like that. And go out when you're in your car, scream and yell in your car all you want. Go down to the ocean, scream and yell out. I used to swim out to sea a little bit and start screaming my head off out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it has to get out.
It has to be expressed.
Yeah. And then if you use the violet flame, you keep it under your bed, and you keep it at your feet, and allow it 24/7 to just keep running up through your energy field, your whole beingness, running up, and it starts to change that anger, that fear into love. And that's what you want, is more love for yourself. And people say, well, I can't do that because, you know, it's embarrassing and people are going to hear me. And I just told my family, I'm going through this therapy and this is what I got to do. And rather than get angry at the kids or blame my husband for something, I go off into my room, grab the pillows, start screaming into them. And it's amazing what a relief it is. Yeah, just relief.
And just like a valve being released. And often it is the unexpressed anger that we had as a child that was never safe to be expressed or felt.
Right.
And it's inevitably going to come out. And unfortunately, at the inappropriate times, but it's like those nerves are being touched on, and it just needs to be released, and it's not even personal to the situation.
Right.
And
if you don't release it, if you keep shoving it down, your body's gonna show it. Your body is gonna start getting ill. You won't feel so good. You'll get a disease. You could get cancer or something like that, because disease is caused by thought plus feeling. We think, oh, a bug came and got me. Well, how was that bug able to get you right then? It's floating around in the air. It didn't get me, didn't get her. How come it got you? There's a weakness there, and the weakness is caused by repetitive thoughts and feelings that you've buried, and sooner or later they cause disease. So if you want to stay healthy, it's really better to let that stuff out.
So another topic in here that you framed it just in such a beautiful way is on the topic of abundance. And when you're on your spiritual path, a lot of people deal with a lot of scarcity issues and poverty mentality, and literally it feels like people seem to go through a cycle of absolute loss and devastation. You know, losing their partner, getting divorced, losing their house, or going bankrupt, or losing their job, or et cetera, et cetera. Everything that maybe makes them feel like they are someone in the world or a contributing citizen to society. And then normally the awakening is preceded by, you know, a number like that. And then no matter how positive you think, no matter what you do, it just seems like there's always just to the penny enough just to do the very next thing. And you know, it's a lot of people struggle with that, including myself. And you just made such a beautiful description about how when you really are on that zero place and then something that you really need like shows up at the dump. You know, maybe that $300 juicer that you get for $1 that day, or something, and that the response in us is then of such immense gratitude, or that it's like a miracle, that we are humbled in a way that we become so much more grateful. And it just, you depicted it so beautifully, because it really changes the perspective on how we get to cherish something that other people would take for granted. Right. You want to share a little bit more about that, or some examples of your life?
Yes. I was raised with poverty consciousness, that you're going to die. You're not going to survive. There won't be enough. Not enough food, not enough money, not enough. So, unfortunately, I went around with those thoughts in my head, and I was really, really frightened of going out into the world. I didn't make much money for a long time. I didn't believe in myself and my skills. Of course, it wasn't good enough. I didn't do it right, etc. What turned out to be the truth was that I excelled in my field and I did excellent work, but my mind wouldn't let me know that. So I went around very poor for a long time, and I learned to trust in God, trust in divine supply. It's very important to get it, that everything comes from the source. And, you know, if you really need something, it's going to show up for you, unless you block it. Unless you have so much resistance to your good that it can't even possibly come in. So what I did, I learned to make I am statements. I am receiving my good today. I am wealthy beyond measure. I am making more and more money all the time. You know, I would say things like that to counteract the mind that was telling me that I was always going to be broke, that I'd never have enough money, and all that. I got to where I started going to thrift stores, like Veruschka said, and I would find the most beautiful clothes. I thought God put them there for me, because it was just amazing how many times I found these beautiful clothes, very, very inexpensive, and I had a wardrobe, boy, you know, and I would find other things, you know, maybe get a little table, and then I'd bring it home and I'd paint it. And, you know, it's fun. It's fun to do that kind of stuff. And as she said, then you appreciate it a lot more. The one thing I had of value is this one diamond ring here. And I have a story about it in my book, that I had lost it at one particular point when I was very low. I'd lost everything, and I was very low. I was in the hospital. And then I went to take a shower, and this diamond went down the drain. Well, at that point, you know, what do? There's nothing to do but just say, I give up.
And who do you blame, right? Like, we want to blame someone.
I just said, I give up. You know, you don't like me, God, you know. Like Job in the Bible, you know, every bad thing happens to him, it can happen. And I think surrender is like that, you know. We push against it. We try, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and it doesn't work out. And the only thing left to do is give up. I surrender, and then I'll say, okay, whatever you want, God, you know, whatever you want. And I've turned my back on God too. I've been really mad at him, and how could you do this to me? And don't you know who I am? And you know, and all
Haven't
that.
I paid my dues?
Yeah.
I've been so devoted. Didn't you notice?
Right.
Well, could you, on that note, share more about surrender?
Well, what I wanted to share was after I gave up, okay, and then I came back to Hawaii. I left my bag in the back room. I didn't unpack it for about 3 weeks. And finally one day I go to get it out, and I had this little makeup bag, and I set it on the kitchen counter, and perched on the edge of this makeup bag was a diamond. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm looking at it. No, it can't be a diamond. How did it get there anyway? You know, and then I decided it must be a zirconia somehow. I didn't even have it. I don't know what. I just couldn't believe it. So when I touched the bag, it fell off. I picked it up off the floor and I looked at it, and it looks like the diamond I lost. So I took it to the jeweler, and he said, yes, this is a diamond. And I mean, if you don't believe God can do incredible things.
I have that with little things all the time, because we put so much meaning on that thing, and then the way they show up literally is just blows your mind, where you're like, this is not possible. There was a wormhole here, guaranteed. Yeah.
And I've had other things come to me like that. You know, where I live, there was these huge trees, and they fall on your house, and everybody was worried about me living here. And I said to God one day, I'm out there, and I didn't know how to get these trees. I had a few cut, but it's expensive. And I said, God, you know, maybe someday you could kind of blow a breeze through here, a little wind or something, and just take them away, you know. Well, about a few months later, maybe a year, we had a hurricane. It blew all those trees down and away from my house. It was really a miracle. And everybody noticed it. I mean, they'd come by and they'd go, no way. Your house is still here. You're still here. This is impossible. And so, you know, God works in mysterious ways, His wonders to behold.
So you do have a chapter on surrender in here. Is there something you can share about that, or any advice you can give us?
Well, surrender, I think that's a hard word, because we think if I surrender, I've lost. You know, hold up the white flag and the other guy won. well, hold up the white flag, and the guy that wins is our higher self, the one that knows the big picture, you know? If you think of it that way, surrender is a good thing. It's like, yeah, I've tried to figure it all out in my mind every which way, and now I'm going to release it to my higher mind that sees the bigger picture and will do something very surprising to help me. Okay, one night I was in my little apartment on the ocean in Maui. I spent the whole night crying because I was getting older and I was never going to have a house. I couldn't afford a house. There was no way. I didn't have good credit. They weren't going to give me credit. So I cried and cried and cried, and I had myself pictured as a very old lady living on the street with her bag or whatever. You know, it was awful. So a series of events happened. I wound up over here in the island of Hawaii that they call the Big Island. And I had gotten a little money from an insurance settlement. So I started driving around and I said, God, if I'm meant to live here and if you want me to have a house, show it to me. It's gonna take a miracle, you know, because you know I don't have enough money to buy a house and I don't have credit. And so I drove around, and then one day I saw this house and it was all run down. But I thought maybe I could get it kind of cheap because it needs work, and you know. So I had him call up the man that owned it, and I made him a really low offer, which left me a little bit of money left over to do some painting on it and stuff, and he took it. So that's how I got my house. And my kids were overjoyed. They said, oh God, Mom, we were so worried what was going to happen to you.
It's a great house. I love this space. It's like a fairy paradise out there, all the flowers.
But you know, in order to receive your good, a lot of times we just have to let it go, because something even better might come than what you thought you wanted, you know?
So you use the word allow.
Allow, yes. Allow the spirit of the universe to provide you with your needs and your wants. When we put out a call to the universe, we're sending an energy. It's like I'm sending a green light coming out of my heart. I'm sending this green energy up to the spirit of the universe. Well, it has to reply. So that it sends me back this green energy with gold all over it. Next thing I know, something shows up that I need, just like my car showed up and the money showed up to buy it. You know, and I had no idea if any of that was going to happen. So it's like trust. That's the big issue. When surrendering means I'm going to have to trust in something greater than this little human me.
And I also call it the call and response, that not being afraid to ask. Not being afraid to ask, because the universe is just like, it's irresistible for it to not respond. So it wants to respond, but we have to just not be afraid to ask for the support or the guidance or, you know, the miracle, because sometimes it just seems like a miracle, you know, and then it comes in such a sneaky way that we couldn't even have imagined.
I know.
That blows our mind.
It blows your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can ask. We're children of God. We can ask for what we want and need. But there's a caveat, and that is to say, whatever is for my highest good, humanity's highest good, and the highest good of all. When you say that, whatever you're asking for will only benefit everyone. And that's a very good thing to say at the end of your prayer. And maybe I thought I needed a certain thing, and God realized I needed something even better. One day, my TV blew out, and it was kind of small screen, and I went to work, and I said, oh, gee, my TV blew out, and I was thinking money, and how am I going to buy a new TV and all that? And somebody said, I have one. I could give you mine because I'm getting a new one. And he brought it over, and it was a much better one, and it was a bigger screen, and it was
delivered.
And delivered. Yeah.
Well, I really love the layout of your book. It has smaller chapters, and you have a lot of your own renderings and drawings to explain some of the things that are happening. So I love that you depict some of these things. Is there anything in particular you would like to point out in here?
I would like to say one thing that I think is very important. I put a chapter in here about, I can't find it, but how our bodies are musical instruments. That may be a new concept, but you take a little child, 2, 3 years old, one of the first toys they get is that little xylophone with the rainbow colors, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and they're playing that. Well, sound is a vibration, and it goes right through a person's body. So when we listen to the right sound, the correct sounds, the do, re, mi, the melodies, the waves are going through our body and harmonizing everything within us. And sometimes you'll hear a song and it grabs your heart, and it just makes your heart open or it makes you cry. Well, today, they have taken the sound and they have brought it down to a low level that is actually harming us. This sound that we hear in grocery stores, malls, businesses, it's everywhere now, is incorrect. It's not music. It's off key. It's off beat. And I want to say, I believe it's deliberate plot on the part of the dark ones on this earth to take us all down. And you don't know it because you're so conditioned to hearing this stuff that you think it's okay. You think it's what you're supposed to hear. It's not. It's taking your whole vibratory system down. It's causing you to stay in your lower mind. It's on a megahertz frequency that's way down here, and what we need is frequencies that are way up here. We want to go, the drums are boom, boom, boom. That's our first 2 chakras. And then we get into the more of the heart, sounds, and it goes up, up, up to E at the top, and E, that sound tunes us up. It helps our body to be healthy. It helps our mind to think correctly. It helps us to be in harmony. And when we don't hear those sounds anymore, we're already getting confused and kind of nutty and stressed out and you know, we don't even realize it's coming from this off sound and off beat. The beat to the music should go with the heartbeat. The waltzes are so good for that. Da, 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 da. Bum, 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 bum. It's all with the heartbeat, you know.
So what are some ways to tune ourselves up when we're feeling inundated with low frequencies?
Well, go back to the old music, you know, the classics, Beethoven, Chopin, Mozart. People love Mozart. The waltzes, or any older music, the oldies but goodies, the old Lerner and Lowe, and these musicals they used to make. They had beautiful, beautiful songs in there. But you have to go back a little bit to get it, because the sound started turning sour in the 80s. So some of it in the 80s is still okay and even good. But
what about some of those high frequency audios you can hear on YouTube that you can find that are allegedly tuned to the heart frequency?
You can't trust all of them.
Because you don't really know the sources. It could be labeled.
Some of them, you know, what was the one I listened to? Somebody that thought he had the right sounds for what the Hathors, who are in charge of music for this universe, and he didn't have them at all. So you just remember the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and you can tone those sounds. Do. Now lately people want to go, ho. That's fine. Ho. For some reason that's becoming popular. The old standby is Om. You know, when we Om, you can feel it go right up into your head and raise your whole system. So they have to be the true notes on a C scale.
Well, I love that you put that part in here. I think that just the vibratory level, there's so many dimensions that we're not really conscious of. And there's just, I feel like you cover a really full spectrum in here. So you can get Handbook for a New Humanity on Amazon right now. And I would just like to say that Rose Elaine has a master's in psychology, and she helped me out in a really distressing moment, did some inner child work with me, and she's just a master at what she does. And just know that the information in this book really comes from a great source and a pure heart. And even just being here with you this hour, the energy is so high vibe. I feel so much love. It's really high vibration, and I hope it resonates out there into the ether worlds. And thank you so much, Rose Elaine. I'm so grateful you wanted to share this. And I love your book, and that's why I wanted to interview you and share it with the world, and I hope that people will benefit from it. Is there any last parting prayer you want to send out?
Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. That's all we got to do.
That's it. Easy as that. All right. Thank you, and big aloha. And I'll have Rose's contact information if you are interested in working with her as well. I am sure she would be delighted.
I do phone sessions.
Wonderful. I highly recommend them.
and personal sessions.